Hello, I'm Gerry Mobbs, clinical psychologist, and I want to talk to you today about 3 top tips for managing depression. Obviously, this is a really simple guide or a starting point and can never replace therapy, but I hope to give you a little bit of a framework that you can start on to turn around your experience of depression. One way of looking at depression is from these 3 perspectives. From the thinking perspective, or the cognitive, from the feeling perspective, which is largely about the physical body, and from the behavioural perspective. So when we experience depression, we usually experience symptoms across those 3 domains: our thinking, physical body and feelings, and our behaviour. And that's some of how we diagnose depression too, of how much is going on for you in each of those 3 domains. So, starting with the thinking or the cognitive level, when we're depressed, our thinking becomes very, very distorted. We can have thoughts of life's not worth living, I've lost all joy and pleasure, no one cares about me, things will never get better. We can have a strong experience of guilt, feeling like we are to blame, feeling that nothing good will ever happen. Our thinking is usually affected about ourself, the world, and the future. So when we're depressed, our thinking is negative about ourselves usually, or the world, or what's going to happen in the future. So even just beginning to notice how your thinking is filtered by the lens of depression is really, really powerful. Sometimes it's useful to externalise your depression. We talk about it as the black dog, or a black cloud, or the inner critic, or the negative critic. And it's the negative critic that is looking at the world through that lens. And it's the negative critic that uses that language inside your own head. So it's good to just start to notice what messages your critic gives you throughout a day about yourself and about what's going on around you. Because when we're depressed, it all seems completely real and true. But one of the things that helps through therapy is we start to talk about those things with someone else, someone objective, who can see that filter and can see the commonalities of these is the sort of thinking that people experience when they're depressed. So even just starting to notice the language that you use, notice labels that you use, put downs, whether you call yourself a failure or an idiot or ugly or whatever it is, or a lot more awful words that the critic can throw up. Notice how many times in a day you put yourself down. Or notice how many times in a day you might say to yourself, this is hopeless, or there's no point, or what does it all mean, or I'll never experience any joy. Starting to externalise and put out your thoughts is really, really helpful. Keeping a thought journal can be a really good idea. There's a number of apps these days on your phone that you can track your mood. One I use is called Optimism. The Black Dog Institute has some good recording devices on their website. But there's a lot of power in starting to just write down, what am I feeling right now? And what are the thoughts that are actually going on for me? What am I telling myself right now? And then the next process through therapy is about gently being able to challenge those. It's not easy, it's not clicking your fingers and just saying think positive, but it's first of all recognising that filter that's there and just beginning to start to ask, is this necessarily true? Is the way that I'm perceiving things 100% true? Or could there be some other ways of also beginning to look at the world? So that's a starting tip around thinking. On the physical level, the feeling level, When people experience depression, they often experience a real deflation of energy, lack of motivation, lethargy, like the body is lead and it's so hard to move, so hard to get going, especially in the morning, feeling tired, wanting to sleep all the time, but then having difficulty sleeping at night. Worry and anxiety symptoms can also happen at the same time. People can lose their appetite or alternatively overeat as a way of self-soothing. And when we're depressed, we tend to slow down. We slow down too much. We tend to withdraw into our shells and everything kind of slows down for us. So on a physical level, anything that helps keep us going is going to be really, really useful, even when it's really hard. And this ties in a bit, the physical and the behaviour tie in a bit with depression here. The two things that we want to try and focus on when we're depressed is doing things that will help us feel, number one, confident, and number two, pleasure. So it's about reconnecting with confidence and enjoyment. When we're depressed, we lose our confidence. We can't see our skills, our personality traits, our strengths. We think they're gone. We think we've changed forever. So, and then we start doing less of those things that we used to do. So then we feel worse about ourselves. The lethargy cycle is when we think that we can't do something or that it'll feel worse, then we do less, and then we feel worse about ourselves because we didn't do it, and the cycle goes on and on. So breaking that cycle by starting to try and do things that make us feel good about ourselves. They don't have to be big. It could be still just going to work. It could be keeping friendships going. It could be getting out of the house every day. It could be reconnecting with people who used to make you feel good and or saw you and your skills or your strengths. So the confidence, and then the other part is pleasure and enjoyment. When we're depressed, we lose joy. Life becomes grey and dull, and we don't feel that spontaneous joy, and we keep waiting for it and it doesn't happen. So one of the ways out of this is to start to do things again that give us some experience of pleasure. Not that same intense joy that we used to feel, but things that we know we used to enjoy in the past. Because when we're depressed, we think that's gone, and then we do less, and then we feel worse again, that same cycle. So starting to plan activities and really schedule them in. Get out your diary and say, this week I'm going to catch up with this friend for coffee tomorrow. I'm going to go for a walk because I know I used to enjoy that. I'm going to do yoga, or I'm going to go for a gym class or a run because I know they're the things I used to enjoy. Now it takes a while for the body to start to register that and to kick in, but over time your natural pleasure response will return if you keep doing those things that make you feel pleasure. Generally as well, it's good to do a little bit of a self-check when we think about behaviours with depression, just about how you're responding to your depression and what behaviours are helpful and what behaviours aren't helpful. The natural response with depression, like anxiety, is to want to avoid and withdraw, and that tends to make things worse for us. So, and avoiding in other ways, drugs and alcohol, procrastination, that's a really big one for depression. So really trying to break that cycle of depression and breaking big unmanageable things down into smaller, more manageable goals, keeping things going, making a start on something, all of those things are really, really important. As well as the opportunity to feel sadness sometimes, but without getting completely lost in it. So often it's about your own expectations of yourself, that maybe this is a time when you do feel more sad, and maybe that's okay. Maybe there's some learning in here, or a message about what you might want to change in your life, or what you're unhappy about. Sometimes there's not, but sometimes it's about doing a bit of a review of your life then. What are the things that make me happy? What do I want to spend my time doing? Doing more of the things that are in line with your values and your true self, and doing less of the things that do just feel like a drag and feel like they drain you. I hope that these are some useful tips that can get you started on your journey out of depression. I do want to remind you that there is hope, even if you're not feeling it right now, and that you won't feel like this forever. It is possible that you will not feel like your old self, but a new, different, more authentic self. It's been really good being with you. If you'd like more information, you can access me at my website, gerrymobbs.com.au, on YouTube, and on podcasts, on Podomatic, and on LinkedIn. Thanks very much.